BMIS 270. This is the second part of Chapter 8, and this covers systems development. The first part the first part of Chapter 8, just to recap it, we talked about reasons to upgrade, what systems analysts do, systems development lifecycle, that's SDLC, so when you see the acronym, that's what it means. Prototypes, projects, project management tools, and specifically Gantt charts and PERT CPM charts. Now, with this slide, what we're looking at is the factors that affect systems projects. So we have internal factors and external factors. Now, obviously, technology changes very quickly, so technology is one of those huge external factors. We can do things today that we couldn't do 2 years ago, for instance, and that really creates a lot of difficulty in investigating, analyzing, designing, and implementing projects because the time frame gets so short, and then you have to have enough implementation or maintenance time that it actually becomes profitable, that this particular project can become profitable. Suppliers, customers. Now, thinking about customers, we used to be, it used to be that we would have a lot of, even 10 or 15 years ago, websites, okay, from just strictly e-commerce kinds of businesses. Today, you have to have, even with brick and mortar kinds of shops, and I know that Home Depot and Lowe's, they sell a lot of stuff online, but they are typically the brick and mortar shop. Now, they've had pressure put on them by their customers to actually have an online presence, and it benefits them. No doubt, it benefits them. But with those kinds of businesses, you want to go in and look at stuff. You can't just order stuff typically online. Now, when I'm saying this, what I'm meaning is those customers, though, over the last 10 or 15 years, have come to expect that online presence, even from what we might consider brick and mortar shops. So that's been an external factor on the Home Depot, Lowe's kinds of businesses to actually develop that site. And it's certainly, that kind of online presence. And it certainly benefits them. There's no doubt about that. But, how they use the internet is different than an Amazon does, for instance. Okay, but once again, the external factor is that customers have come to expect this kind of online presence, and that if you don't create the presence, you won't be competitive. Okay, competitors, because Home Depot does this online presence, Lowe's has to do this as well. The economy, the economy has been down for the last 3 or 4 years, and that has. Think about when you're investing, and if people don't have money to spend, or think about you're creating a business, people don't have money to spend. What's the likelihood of them spending their money on your business? Okay, so when you think about that, even though you put together these websites, these online presences like Home Depot and Lowe's, and of course that scale is really up there as far as the number of customers it reaches. Now, with the economy being low, what is the return on that investment? So you add these online services. Well, that's well and fine, but how do you pay for it? And with the economy being low or being slow, it takes a lot longer to pay for that particular kind of project. If the economy is really moving along, it really pays for itself pretty quickly. So that's an external factor on, can I implement this? How much of this project should I implement? What kinds of services should I provide? And what is going to be the payback time? And then finally, external factors is the government. And electronic medical records is a great example of government regulations that's really pushing that medical industry. And it's electronic medical records is a good thing. There's no doubt about that. But it does push the systems projects. It pushes the costs associated with the healthcare industry, and part of that cost of the healthcare industry, the increase of the cost of the healthcare industry is related due to moving toward electronic medical records. In part, it's all part of that picture. Now, the internal factors. Top managers, user requests, information technology department, and existing systems and data. Those internal factors, I guess I'm thinking, is that they are a little less relevant. The big push, the big thing that affects systems projects is strategic planning. So where do I want to be? What's my goal for the next 3 to 5 to 7 years perhaps? What kind of information system do I need to attain that goal, and how do I put that into place and make it work? So that strategic plan really pushes your information system and really pushes much of the rest of these particular factors. Okay, now with systems investigation, what we're doing kind of at this point is kind of breaking down a little bit of the systems development life cycle. Remember, that's the SDLC. So systems investigation, some questions that you might ask within an initial systems investigation. And when we talk about systems investigation, what you're doing is asking, why do we need to do a project? What are we trying to solve? What competitive advantage are we trying to gain? So with that said, what primary problems might a new or enhanced system solve? This is something we want to ask. What opportunities might a new or enhanced system provide? So we're looking to solve problems, to create opportunity. What new hardware, software, databases, telecommunications, personnel, or procedures, remember that's what an information system is, all of those things, will improve an existing system or are required in a new system. So let's just think about required in a new system. And the electronic medical records, those security, the ability to transfer information from one place to another, that's all required in that new system. Now, what are the potential risks, or I'm sorry, potential costs of this particular system? What's the hardware? What's the software going to cost? What are the big costs, or really anymore the people costs? So if I'm paying a systems analyst $70,000, $80,000 a year, and that's probably conservative here in Montana, or that's probably typical in Montana, conservative nationally, how much is this going to cost me for that project? Also getting in a DBA at $60,000 or $70,000 a year. All these pieces. What are these costs gonna cost me? Because remember, you have not only the people, the cost of the people themselves, but you have indirect costs, which are healthcare costs, which is retirement. So you have a lot of additional costs along with that initial salary. Now, I don't want to just focus on the people. That tends to be the most expensive part, but also electricity, also gasoline. How can you, with gasoline prices going up and down, and say you have a project that is just like that interchange project down on Custer in Helena there. So they could guesstimate a cost based upon $3 a gallon for gas, okay, to run all of the equipment and to put the stuff together. What if that cost per gallon goes up to $4 a gallon rather than $3? They had estimated at $3. Okay, so that's a variable cost that is just really difficult to actually determine, and that's why with some projects you may have cost overruns. And I hope you see what I'm kind of thinking about with that. Now, also, what are the associated risks? Now, with a particular system, I think the first thing that comes to my mind. So you have a strategic goal. You put together an information system that will allow that goal to be successful. What if technology changes very quickly in that particular area? You're sitting there with a whole bunch of outdated software and hardware that you probably can use to some extent, but it may not be the best. So there's an associated risk there. What if you put together this? Secondly, what if you put together this site that's really cool, has really some neat stuff to it, but people just don't like it. People just don't have the money because of the economy, and they're just simply not buying. So what are the risks associated with a particular project? So when we initiate systems investigation, the first thing we'll do is go and have a systems request form. And this is usually filled out by someone who wants IS to initiate a project or an investigation, actually. And then after the investigation, the initial systems investigation report should contain some of the following. So this investigation, this initial analysis, if you will, should contain information like problems in or opportunities for the system. Okay, so we might look at a SWOT analysis for that. Objectives of the system, overview of the proposed system, expected costs and benefits of the proposed system. So in that, costs and benefits goes to economic feasibility, which we'll talk about. Now, this also summarizes the process of the feasibility analysis, and then we'll recommend a course of action, whether we continue, whether we change it, whether we just drop it. So continue, modify, or drop. Okay, now, the SWOT analysis is a strategic planning method used to evaluate the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats involved in a project or in a business venture. Now, this involves specifying the objective of the business venture or project and identifying the internal and external factors that are favorable and unfavorable to achieve that objective. So, we have kind of what overall? Strengths. Characteristics of the business or team that give it an advantage over others in the industry. So that's a strength. A weakness is a characteristic that places the firm at a disadvantage relative to others in that same industry. Opportunities are external chances to make greater sales or profits in the environment. Okay, so yeah, I was thinking about customer service and customer satisfaction, but I think greater sales really, greater customer satisfaction results typically in more sales or profits. Threats, external elements in an environment that could cause trouble for the business. So let's look at this kind of example from the book. So a strength, excellent web design. Okay, excellent web design staff, I should say that correctly. Low systems analyst turnover and recently upgraded network. Okay, so that's a strength, and that might be something that gives a particular business an advantage over others in the industry. Low systems analyst turnover, that's that would be pretty important. So that's a person who knows the system, knows all the stakeholders, how the business works, and can really design those new systems, those new aspects of a system to really be most beneficial to the business. Now, weaknesses within the same basic example. The problem might be for this business that they're still using several old legacy systems. Those are old systems that might be, for instance, COBOL-based or mainframe-based. That just gives basic information. And some of those legacy systems you may have to maintain, but they're typically slow. They may not give you the information that you will need in today's world. Okay. Budget increase was turned down, so that would be definitely a weakness. Why would that budget increase be turned down? Maybe the economy is having a problem. Maybe we're having a problem with the economy. Documentation needs to be updated. So that, we'd have to know more about the business to specifically state why that's an issue. And you need to have documentation that's updated regardless, but why that would be a weakness relative to others in the industry, I'd have to think about that example a little bit. Opportunities. Okay, so this may give us opportunities are external chances to make greater sales or profits in the environment. So well positioned for expansion. Okay, maybe this company is doing things really well regionally. They want to go national with a particular product. So they can be first with new software. That might be an opportunity. And, think about Amazon and that particular business model. Amazon was really the first successful business with that particular kind of model. Now, when we say it can be first with new software, I would almost think of Amazon and this example synonymously, in that they were first with that particular kind of software, that model, and doing what they're doing, and look at where they are today. It was a huge opportunity for them. And then high potential of, in this case, business-to-business growth. Now, the threats, though, aggressive new web competition, and that really tends to be a threat with any business today. And you really have to keep up on top of things, provide a good service. Just simply providing information anymore, a static informational site, probably isn't going to cut it anymore in order to stay competitive. Now, impact of new FCC rules. Always government regulations can create a lot of havoc within your system. Can cause you to really even start new systems projects just to meet those regulations. And then other firms offer better benefits. Okay, that's sort of an internal thing, but to a company. But if you're looking within the same business group, the same kind of industry, and company B offers way better benefits, but way better retirement, and I think as an example, and you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, but for instance, in education itself, Wyoming, if I recall correctly, pays your share of the retirement and your share of state taxes within the educational environment. So that really creates a competitive advantage for Wyoming. Of course, Wyoming is a great place, but the towns it's fairly low populated. The towns are scattered here and there, so they have to create some kind of competitive advantage in order to get people there. Now, I can certainly, with paying your share of the retirement and state taxes, or maybe they don't even have state taxes. Maybe that was the deal on that, if I recall. I have some colleagues that are working down there, and I spoke to them a year or two ago. And, but competing Montana against Wyoming with an education, and Wyoming doing what they're doing to gain competitive advantage, they are certainly providing better benefits than Montana is. So, that's just sort of the culture, the nature of the industry, and how that could be a threat to the Montana educational environment. Okay, so hopefully that was clear. It's probably clear as mud, I suspect. Okay, now, finally, and that will conclude part one. And part two, we'll take a look at operational and cultural feasibility and some other bits and pieces.